Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey. Only the biggest stories, only the biggest guests, and only the biggest opinions. This is AM 560 The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy from the files of Illinois Never Missing an Opportunity to Miss an Opportunity. Our next guest, Bob Milan, former first assistant state's attorney in Cook County, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Northern District of Illinois. Bob ran for state's attorney back in the day after Devine retired, and he was defeated in the Dem primary by Anita Alvarez.
I remember it well.
I wonder how the trajectory of prosecuting violent crime, perhaps even political corruption, in Chicago and Cook County would have been different over the last 15 years had Bob Milan been the Cook County State's Attorney. But alas, as per usual, those are only fantasies that we can undertake in Cook County and Illinois. Fantasies of competence in high office. Anyway, Bob, thanks for joining us again. Appreciate it.
Sure. Good morning. How are you?
Good. So, we haven't talked to you in a bit, but, of the last year and particularly the last couple of months of going into the election and then the machinations over the Safety Act, the amendments to it, the litigation about it, the Supreme Court stay of it. Where do you come down on all this? Is it your belief that the Safety Act should be held to be unconstitutional by the Supreme Court and the General Assembly can try again?
Well, I hate to speculate on what the Illinois Supreme Court may or may not do, but my take on it is that it will be found unconstitutional. The opinion written by Judge Cunnington of Kankakee County is well written, well thought out, and it's pretty clear that by completely eliminating cash bail, the Safety Act violated the separation of powers clause of the Illinois Constitution, and that the Illinois Constitution states in it, all persons shall be bailable, and that power to determine who's bailable and who isn't is inherent with the courts to determine, the judges, and not the legislature. And so by enacting the Safety Act, our state legislature infringed on the duties of the courts. I believe that's how this will turn out.
Right. Do you think
but again, I'm sorry, go ahead, Amy.
No, sorry for interrupting, but do you think that then they'll try to amend our state's constitution?
I think it's a distinct possibility, but the only way they can do it is by voters doing it. They're going to have to take it to the voters. That's the only way you can amend the Illinois state constitution. So there will have to be a vote on it, and so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I could foresee them trying to do that. Yeah.
Or they could do something really, really crazy. In thinking about legislation outside the competence area of most of the members of the General Assembly, they could actually have conversations with prosecutors and public defenders and judges this time around about what makes sense and develop this in such a way that there isn't mass confusion among all the stakeholders in the criminal justice system. I don't know if that's just a bridge too far, but that's something they could do.
Well, first they have to deal with this, whether it's constitutional or not.
Assuming it's ruled unconstitutional.
Yeah, if it's ruled unconstitutional, then it's back to the drawing board. But what's the most troubling about this whole thing was the initial bill that got passed. Mm-hmm. The fact that our elected officials, the president of the Senate, the Speaker of the House and the governor pushed this bill and then signed it in the middle of the night, a bill that would absolutely endanger all of our communities, no doubt about it. It's outrageous what the initial bill said. And now here we are scrambling. The elected officials put us in this position, right? They chose to do this. And they either didn't read it, which is outrageous, or they read it, knew what it was going to do, and did it anyway. And so to me, that's really troubling.
When you
because what
talk,
it,
well, yeah, I mean, we've heard from a lot of county state's attorneys and sheriffs about this over the last year, but and when you talk about how it would have endangered communities, or it will if even a 2.0 version is held to be constitutional and implemented. What do you mean specifically? What about what's in there is most concerning to you?
well, I'm talking about the original bill, and I can discuss the amendments later. The amendments are far better. A lot of positive changes in the amendment. But in the original bill, let me give you an example. Let's say 3 convicted murderers served their sentence and got out of prison, their parole's over, and they spot a woman walking down the sidewalk, and they jump out of their car. They walk up to her and they punch her in the face and break her nose and take her purse. Under the original bill, they could not be held in custody. None of the 3, even though they were convicted murderers, even though they committed that act against her, because aggravated battery was not one of the listed offenses that were pre-trial detainable, nor was robbery. And they couldn't, the way that it was written, you don't even consider, you can't even get to the fact that they were all convicted murderers, right?
Couldn't use prior
And
bad acts. Right.
That's how crazy that bill was. It had things in there that if you didn't show up to court, so let's say you were charged with robbery and you don't show up to court, in the old days, the judge could issue a warrant, right? Issue a warrant for your arrest. Now, no, they'd have to issue a rule to show cause that had to be served on the person before the next court date. And then if the person showed up to the next court date, it was as if he never missed court. And he could do that 10 times. You could do that exercise 10 times and nothing would happen to him.
And
I
what
had
about
stricter rules.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry.
I just was going to say I had stricter rules for missing class at St. Ignatius High School than seriously, than individuals charged with these crimes.
Well, what about the snitch line for police that anybody could call and allege or make an allegation against any officer?
Yeah, I think that.
Did they do away with that?
I didn't see that. I didn't see that they did away with that in the amendment, but so I'm not sure on that. But I'm concentrating on the big ones that really affect, the public at large. But so the original bill was outrageous, but there's a lot of positive changes. Okay, what they did with the amendments, right? They expanded the list of offenses that are now detainable pre-trial, which is very good. They also took out that crazy phrase. So in order to hold somebody in custody under the original bill, the prosecutor would have to show that the defendant poses a specific real threat to an identifiable person. So carjacker who gets brought before a judge, this prosecutor would have to say, you know what, we think he's going to carjack Mrs. Jones next week. I mean, it's nuts. That's what it required, right? That's taken out. Instead, they use to any person of the community. So, the example I just gave you about warrants, the judge may issue a warrant for non-appearance now, and he may consider prior non-appearances in detaining a person. So the bill, as it sits now, under the amendment, is better, a lot better, but it's still not perfect.
Chris Welch, he's the House Speaker. He's a officer of the court. He's an attorney. Our governor, J.B. Pritzker, he's got a law degree from Georgetown. He's an attorney. So, what do you say to those two principals, just to name two, that passed and signed that initial version into law? Would you suggest that anybody who voted for that law, much less signed it into law, that's a disqualifying event?
It's a huge problem. I mean, I think, and I hold the media to the fire on this too. They should have been brought. People should have asked. The media should have interviewed them and asked them the specific questions. Go over the kind of things I'm going over right now. The problem is it's a 750-page bill, right? How many people really? Exactly. How many people dig in like I do and some of my colleagues and actually read it and realize how insane this is, right? But that should have happened, and they should have been brought in front of the public and asked, how could you let this happen? Is it true that 3 convicted murderers see a woman walking down the sidewalk, get out, punch her in the face, steal her purse, and those guys could not be held in custody under your original bill? How did you let that happen, right? And go through all of the crazy suggestions that were in there. But it never happened. So they're not going to be held accountable for it.
And with the even if it's held unconstitutional, um, does anything change in Cook County? Because from what I can see as a layman, never a prosecutor, um, Kim Fox and Preckwinkle and Tim Evans have basically been operating under something similar to version 1.0 of the Safety Act in a de facto manner.
Yeah, and that's distressing. I mean, they've essentially endorsed the original bill, which
Yeah.
again, people should be, asked about this publicly, held held to answer these questions on how in fact they could have done this. But yeah, it's a problem, and look, we need prosecutors to think about the victims, right? And the victims of crimes. I mean, the average person, unless you're one of them, or unless you're a police officer that deals with it every day, or a prosecutor that deals with this every day, people have no idea what the pain it's caused to these people. I mean, they have no idea what it's like to lose someone to a violent crime, or somebody that's injured for the rest of their lives, paralyzed to a shooting, and I can go on and on and on, right?
Yeah.
They just don't understand the pain, right? So where are these elected officials talking about that, right? Where are they? I don't hear anything.
Well, the
all I do
suspects
is
come
see,
first. They care more about the
all I
suspect than
do
the
is
victim.
5 juveniles were shot yesterday in Chicago, right? This year we had 735 homicides just in Chicago, and 3,602 people shot just in Chicago. Where are these elected officials when it comes to this, right? They're nowhere to be found. But guys, what they come up with this crazy bill to help all these guys that are shooting, killing, raping, and hurting people. It's unbelievable. If somebody would have told me 20 years ago that this kind of stuff would be, a bill like this would be passed, I'd say it's fiction, but it happened.
Well, Pritzker did it because it was an election year, don't you think? That motivated him?
Yeah, I think he, he puts his finger up in the air and say, which way is the wind blowing, and he goes with it. That's my take on it. There's no way he read this, and there's no way he sat down with people and had them describe it to him. And then lo and behold, when it passes and everybody starts telling him, this is what's going to happen, he says, oh, you know what, I think we need some changes. Well, that should have been done first, right? That should have been addressed first.
Well, he didn't say we need some changes until it was
After the election.
until he was taking on water over the issue in the last days of the election, and then after the election to make all this ugliness sort of go away or subside a bit, right? I mean, his initial
Exactly
response,
right.
if you remember, from criticism was anybody who's critical of this is a racist and a fearmonger. That was his initial reaction. Of course, it was.
Exactly. So it's unbelievable. But I will say that the amendments brought about a lot of positive changes. I was really glad to see that.
In Cook County, with respect to the enforcement of the law, prosecuting violators of the law side of the house, so prosecutors and judges, I guess can you rate the job that Tim Evans and Kim Fox are doing? Is one a bigger problem than the other? Are they both problems? Are neither problems? What's happening on that side of the house?
Well, let me just, in regards to the state's attorney's office, there's still a lot of really, really good men and women in there that want to do the right thing, right? So the people that are in the trenches, there's still a lot of really good ones, and thank God for them. And every day they're trying to do the right thing. Obviously, I'm very disappointed in the leadership, and I think it has a big impact on the morale, right? When the leadership isn't doing what the people in the trenches expect the leadership to do, it's a huge problem, right? Like protect victims of crime, think of victims of crime first and foremost, and that's what's not going on. And in regards to the judiciary, there's still a lot of good judges, right? Still a lot of good judges, in the county that are trying to do the right thing each and every day. But again, this false political narrative that's being pushed that people get arrested with a dime bag of cocaine with no criminal background are being held in custody is nonsense, right? It's nonsense. It never
Stealing diapers.
Yeah, that person is now in custody for 2 years awaiting trial, right? Show me the case. I want to see a case in which those examples happen and the person has no criminal background and no reason to be held in custody. Show it to me, right? People make these broad statements. There's thousands of people in custody for low-level offenses. Really? Okay, show it to me. Show me one where it's a low-level offense with no criminal background, you know? So, yeah, I'm a lot of the leadership of elected officials are pushing this false narrative, and it's got to end.
You think that change in the state attorney's office or the Cook County circuit, you think it comes from inside or it needs to come from outside? And by outside, I mean it needs to come from voters electing a new state's attorney, electing a new mayor, chief judge, retaining, not retaining, or at some point there'll be enough professional people, those good men and women you talk about, that they won't just speak publicly on their way out the door like Jim Murphy did. And I'm not faulting him. At least he did that, former head of felony review. But it seems like we need, maybe, in my view, a combination of the two. Neither one is happening right now, and I don't know who goes first. I don't know what the sequencing is or can be, but it seems like we need a combination of the two, and we're not getting either.
Well, it's not going to happen from inside. That's not going to happen. People have to answer to their bosses, and they have jobs, and it's just not going to happen. It's going to happen from the outside and from elections. That's the only way this is going to change.
All right. He is Bob Milan, former First Assistant State's Attorney, Cook County, and former Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Northern District of Illinois as well. Bob, thanks as always for joining us. Appreciate it.
It's good talking to you. Have a good day.
All right, you too. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
Listen to podcasts of Dan and Amy from the AM 560 mobile app. Download it today at 560theanswer.com/mobile.
Inflation is up, the stock market is down, and you're just a few years away from retirement, and you're losing money. Hey, it's Sean for Tom Fortino of the Alpha Wealth Group. Your big question may be, will I be able to retire on time? Tom understands how you feel. He's been helping people retire for over 25 years. He can show you how to build a guaranteed income, save on taxes, and get off the market roller coaster. You've worked hard for your wealth. Now let's protect it. Don't let the market decide when you can retire. Call Tom today at 630-934-1855 and schedule a complimentary portfolio x-ray. You'll find out where you are now, plus get a customized plan designed to help you reach the retirement you've always wanted. That's 630-934-1855. Or visit alphawealthgroup.com and listen to the Alpha Wealth Hour Saturday mornings at 9 here on AM 560 The Answer.
Advisory services through Retirement Wealth Advisors, LLC, a SEC-registered investment advisor. Insurance and annuities offered through Alpha Wealth Group, licensed in Illinois.
My brother-in-law died suddenly, and now my sister and her kids have to sell their home. That's why I told my husband we could not put off getting life insurance any longer. An agent offered us a 10-year